Welcome once again, everybody, to the stream. How are you all doing today? How is everybody? Today is going to be a special day, everybody. Nice to see you in the chat. Hey, NGKO, what's up? Something Wong, I haven't seen you in a while, my dude. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hi, Belle. Steve, of course, Steve. How you guys doing today? Hey, we got a really special guest today. We have the wonderful and amazing Paige in Kansas. We're going to be doing a quick chat, have a little talk with her, see what she's got upcoming. Paige is the one who is responsible for my very first fundraiser, for organizing it. After tragedy had struck, I was trying my hardest to get someone to help. I cried out for help. I think it was on X. Somebody help me. And Paige was kind enough to pick up the fundraiser, and we were able to complete it with the 14th mech. And yeah, it went from there. That was really the start of it. So without further ado, let me get her on, and we will go from there. And I can unmute you here and pull you over. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How's it going?
Awesome. Hi. Good. I just realized it looks like I'm actually in a bunker right now, and I'm not. I am in a sense. I'm in my basement, but I am at home.
Basement's weird.
Yeah. Well, usually I would talk on my my work desk, but there's a whole mess up there with my regular job, and then getting ready for. I've got all sorts of packages and ultrasound machines and Israeli bandages laying around, so I came down here.
So you're headed back to Ukraine. So guys, if you don't know, this is Paige. Say hi to Paige, everybody in the chat, if you could. Also, Paige, I don't know if you know this, but our friend in the 14th Mechanized, his family member is in their chat right now, Angie.
Oh, awesome. Hi, Angie.
So, yeah, Paige is the one that helped us out with this. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's hear it. Who are you?
Well, when a man and a woman love each other, long, long ago, in the back of a gold Monte Carlo. That part's true. So I'm Paige. I'm in Kansas. I'm originally from California, like my buddy here. Moved here with my dad's work when I was younger. After college, I went to K-State and had some speakers come while I was in school talk about the Peace Corps, and it was a couple that had served in Lesotho, Africa, and their story really resonated with me. And that was my freshman year. And I remembered that until I ended up doing a super senior year. And that last year, I started my application to join the Peace Corps, and took about a year to get in. And at the time, anyway, you didn't choose where you went. So the fact that I was assigned to Ukraine or nominated for a Ukrainian program and accepted that was completely a fluke, like at random. I didn't have any sort of connection to Ukraine prior to that. So it's kind of crazy that just that one, I could have ended up going to Romania or Moldova, and not to say that I wouldn't be trying to help still, but probably I wouldn't have established the same kind of connections and networks that I had while I was living there. So I definitely wouldn't be able to have the same impact or do the same things that I have been able to. So that's where that all started. And then, so I lived there for a little, almost 2.5 years. My primary job was teaching English as a foreign language in a village school, which was really challenging, especially when the textbooks were quite old and were British English, which I naturally, I put up a little bit of a fight with certain words. Like I refused to say vitamins or aluminium. That was one that I was like, no, that's stupid. I'm going to say it the right way. But but the teachers were patient with the Ukrainian teachers were patient with me. Yeah, so I did that. And then I worked, volunteered at like summer camps, English summer camps while I was there. So I lived right in the center of the country. So now in Kansas, I live like 60 miles from the geographic center of the United States. And there, I think I live like 30 miles from the geographic center of Ukraine. So, and it looks a lot alike too. Yeah. And then I worked around in different camps and stuff. Some of them were over near Uman, which is also it's more central. And it's just kind of all over, but I primarily was stayed in the central part. I didn't get the opportunity. Actually, the first time I went out to the east wasn't until 2023. But yeah, so became really good close with became really close with some people in my village, made some really close friends, and stayed in touch with them thanks to the internet and social media. That's really all I used to do on social media. I can't stand it, but now I'm kind of stuck on it for for Ukraine. But um, so when I came back, I moved back. I lived there till the end of 2012. So Maidan, the Maidan Revolution started about a year after I left, and so I watched that from home, which was really scary, of course. But at the same time, there were parts of it because I don't want to say it was needed in the sense that people needed to be heard or whatever, and that was also when Crimea was invaded. So, but there were certain things there needed to be changed. So I guess there was that was the silver lining. So yeah, and then once the full scale started, I just started doing anything I possibly could, and here we are, over 3 years later, still doing it.
If you could, you mentioned the Peace Corps, and pardon my ignorance, I know a little bit about the Peace Corps, but what exactly? How are they funded, and what exactly is the Peace Corps?
Yeah. Before I go on, I wanted to show you. I've never actually worn this shirt before, but I found this I put it on just for this. It's a little lady fella shirt. And then, isn't that cute? And then I realized after I was putting it on that I already put a bandana thing like in my hair like her. So I was like, perfect. And she's also got it's like my style, my arm is all American traditional. So I love it.
Yeah, I got my little
Good time to break it out.
my little Shiba Inu shirt going on here too. It says "No horny,"
Nice.
Specifically for this stream, guys.
Hey, I thought we got rid of that rule. So the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
So the Peace Corps it's a volunteer program, but at the end of the day, it's a diplomacy program. It's to help. It was established in. Oh, and I actually have something from Ukraine that some of my students made for me years ago that I just happened to find today that's related to this. It was established in 1961 by Colonel Shriver, I think was his name, and JFK. And there are three main goals of the Peace Corps. The first one is to provide trained men and women with education or training in a certain area that those areas have. I think there's 8 different sectors now, but they have grown a lot in what they can do and the diversity and all that. But so in other words, to countries who request this, like it's not, we don't just put people in places. The sites and the countries have to request this, request volunteers. So for healthcare, for example, they would have or a good one is agriculture. So if you have someone that has a strong an education, a strong background in agriculture, then they could go over and help start some farms or greenhouses, for example.
Right.
So that was the first goal. The second goal is to educate the host country nationals about the U.S. And then the third goal is to educate when you come back. Sorry. When you get back when you complete your service, to come back and teach Americans about your host country, and which I'm still doing today more than ever. I actually have said, I consider all the stuff that I've been doing still in both ways. I'm still doing 2, really, if you think about it, because it's especially important now with not just the last couple of months, but even with the previous administration and then especially with what's been going on lately. There has been a lot of disappointment and embarrassment in the United States and embarrassment on our part. So us, continuing to show Ukrainians that Americans have not lost that our empathy entirely, or that kind of volunteer spirit has been really important to me as well. So so like I said, there are I think 8 different sectors now, everything from healthcare, agriculture. So there's I think there's regular healthcare, and then there's AIDS and HIV, awareness, education, prevention, education, small business development is a newer one. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head, and they finally we're starting to, because all the programs were pulled during COVID, and they were finally starting to getting them built back up and getting volunteers back in the countries again, because a lot of them, I mean, they just had to shut them down. So
Where does the funding for the Peace Corps come from? Is it through USAID?
it's through the State Department, the U.S. State Department. So it's through no, it's not through US. No, it's not through that. I can't remember. I'd have to look that up. I know this answer because I've actually advocated for for Peace Corps funding. It's just been a minute, so I can find that out for you.
Speaking of advocation, you've gone to Razon events at DC also, right?
Yep. Yeah. So my first I dipped my toe in advocacy with Peace Corps stuff, Peace Corps legislation, with Kansas Senator Moran's office. Marshall would never meet with us. I think we met with someone from his office, like on a webcam, but that's pretty typical for his office anyway. And then I met with a couple of Missouri senators at some point. And so I kind of had I was a little bit familiar with that. So then when it came to it for the first Ukraine Action Summit in October of 2022 in DC, I thought, why not? And it's definitely intimidating the first time, like, because Capitol Hill is just wild. Like, it's so busy, and there's just people, important looking people running around through buildings, and you have to walk a lot, all, back and forth and across the hill, which it's a lot bigger when you you don't realize how big it is when you're having to walk all the way across, especially if it's hot and you're having to wear business attire or whatever. So it's definitely a little intimidating, but at the end of the day, like, they're all regular people. Some of them are a little more respectable than others, but generally the people that work in their offices or staff are just because, like, just because someone works in a specific representative's office doesn't mean that they agree with any of their beliefs. It's just, it's a job for them. So a lot of times, I've sat down with senior policy advisors and some aides and things that have been like, you can tell when people are being really genuine and asking the right questions and everything. And some of them have been some of the most supportive people that I've spoken to there. And that's important because a lot of them, like, especially those senior advisors and defense fellows and all that stuff, they are in the ear of the representatives. So it's just as important to establish relationships with them because they could also end up holding office eventually as well.
What was the preparation like for one of those events? Because I know you really have to break it down factual for the representative. How was the preparation for that?
So you really, it's that part seems overwhelming as well, because there's like bills. Usually the goal when you go in there is you're acting as the constituent, you're acting as the voice of whatever the cause is, right? And they just want to know ultimately, like, what do you want? Like, what do you want me to do? And like, so it's called an ask. So it was originally Razom, but then they branched off, and which kind of, they were one of the main groups that started the American Coalition for Ukraine, which is now its own separate identity organization. And so that's who organizes it now, the American Coalition for Ukraine. They did and they've always done a really great job of putting together materials. So they have packets for each office that they give out, and it requires some research from advocates as far as like looking up your representatives you're scheduled to meet with, and knowing, okay, for example, Kansas Senator Marshall or Moran is, in the defense, what's the word I'm looking for, committee and stuff like that, and so which committees are how can I
schmooze
present this to this representative in a way that it's connected to them, basically, and like how they can do it, not just like, this is what I want, but like, here's my ask, I want you to either, I want you to co-sponsor or vote for this, piece of legislation. I know that you're on, and it shows respect too when you actually, instead of just showing up and not knowing what they're involved with. Like I always make it a point to thank Senator Moran for his work for U.S. veterans, because that's something that he's done a lot of legislation on, and that is important to me. So knowing that and kind of just showing like, hey, I do pay attention to your, because that's ultimately what they care about, our votes, and people liking them so they can get more votes. So showing that and showing that support, and everybody likes a little ego boost and acknowledgement and stuff. So so knowing them, that's like the biggest prep before. But otherwise, as far as the actual bills, you do some training at the beginning of the summit in big groups, and then you kind of break off into smaller groups depending on your state. And you have like a state delegation leader, which I've done a couple of times. And usually, because I'm the only Kansan, I have been the delegation leader of Oklahoma and Missouri and Tennessee and North Carolina, I think, before, or at least all those. So yeah, so you're usually the team leader has had experience doing it before, so just kind of help guide people and organize and make sure everybody's showing up to their meetings and have everything they need.
So yeah, we've done an advocacy stream. That's why I was curious about your stance, and a lot of what you're touching on, we absolutely touched on as well. Knowing your representative, is he a devout Christian? If he is, you're not going to go in there and make a JD Vance couch fucker joke to him,
right,
right off the bat,
right,
and stuff like that.
yeah.
I want to circle back to your time in Ukraine. What was it initially like when you first got there? What was the feeling that you had?
Mm, I'm thinking. My first feeling was, my first thoughts. My first thoughts were when we were on the bus, because there was a whole group of us, Peace Corps Group for Ukraine, Peace Corps Ukraine Group 40. And Ukraine, the Peace Corps program in Ukraine at the time was the largest Peace Corps program in the world that the U.S. that we had in the world. There were 400 volunteers in Ukraine. It was huge. Unfortunately, about halfway through my service, the budgeting was cut, so the program was cut in about in half. Basically, people were going home and they weren't replacing them, which was really unfortunate. So we all got off the plane. Now I'm actually like thinking back. So we all got off the plane and we're walking through the airport, and I didn't know. I started like listen, because I only found out I was going to Ukraine a month before. So I started like listening to it, like radio and stuff. And to me, it sounded like how the Sims talk. I remember thinking that, like, I can't understand. Like, I can't even hear where the words start and end. So I had been like practicing the alphabet, because the alphabet is oh shit, what's the word? It's very much like, in the English language, letters can make different combinations of letters can make very different sounds, but like Ukrainian is a very, like, if this is how it's written, these are the letters, like that's how it's spoken.
Right,
There's not a lot of like tricks with like pronunciation, like dough and rough, for example, or things like that. So I didn't know the language, so we're walking through the airport, and there's a bunch of us, and we're all, probably still smiling all big, even though they told us not to, and we all look goofy as shit, and everybody in there was probably like, oh, these are clearly foreigners. And there were all these guys that were just like, like men standing in the airport with their arms crossed, and then they were like saying things like in a low voice to us, and it was a little bit creepy, because not creepy, but just like it was like, oh, just as a woman especially. But then it turns out they were just asking if we needed a ride, like a cab. So I thought that was kind of funny. And then on the bus ride to where we first went in Desna, which is up north a little bit toward Chernobyl, we went to this like campground thing and for orientation. But on the way, I remember looking at all the billboards, and I was just like sounding out. And I didn't know what any of the words meant, but I was like, I know that letter, and I just had a moment of like, oh shit, like this is a whole last language. and it's a very, I had no experience with any Slavic languages before, so it's a very different look. It's almost like now when you see AI images and the words are all kind of funky, like the words are always kind of like goofy and it doesn't show up correctly, or they're kind of like morphed or warped. That's kind of how it felt. So it was just kind of, it was, the language was, I think, one of the biggest things.
So I've noticed with the language, phrases or sentences that translate in English do not match the translation in
No.
Ukrainian. So it's almost like like a heritage sort of aspect to where you need to know the culture before you can even start speaking the language. Have you ran into that as well?
Yes. Two examples of that. One, I could always tell when my students would use Google Translate for their homework. One, because Google Translate wasn't even as good back then. This was 2010 to 2012, especially with Ukrainian language. And a lot of them would speak Russian or write in Russian, but either one, it just wasn't as good. But that reason is why, because like there were certain ways that Google Translate would phrase things that just weren't, they were consistent with it. But like one example that you might, if you just translate something directly, someone might be talking about themselves, like a man might be talking about himself, and he might send you a message and say, uh, I was injured. But if he doesn't say I, and he just says was injured with the male ending of that, like the verb with the male ending, then it translates to he was injured, for example. So it's kind of, it's a little tough to explain, but it doesn't, and then like, they don't have articles like a or the either. That part's not as hard, but what was the other thing? When my mom came to visit when I lived there, and I had been there about a year, I think. And I had picked up the first 3 months were training. I lived with a host family for the first 3 months in the town with a couple other volunteers, and we would go to like classes for those 3 months every day and learn language and like job training and cultural training and stuff. And so living with a host family who didn't know any English was a lot. It was challenging, but it was also full immersion is 100% the best way and really the only way to truly learn a language, like, not like the actual spoken language, to be able to communicate, kind of like what you were saying. So when my mom was there, I was translating back and forth for her, which I'm actually more fluent now than I was then. And this was still only a year into my service. And so there would be but there were some times where they would say like 3 sentences, and she'd be like, what did they say? And I would just say like something really quick. And she's like, but clearly they said more. And I'm like, it doesn't translate. Like there's not, I would have to, it's like a concept or something. And I don't have an example prepared, but yes, there are just certain things that like, I would have to like think about it and figure out. I could explain it. It's not entirely foreign, but it's just not the way that we speak, I guess.
So you were in a small village, right? It was just kind of like, what was it like? What was the village itself like? What was the living like? How can you describe it?
So before I do that, I wanted to show you, I have these fabric cutouts that apparently, so the Peace Corps turned 50 while I was there, because the Peace Corps started in 1961. So in 2011, we celebrated both 50 years for the Peace Corps and 20 years of independence for Ukraine. So that was a fun year of celebration. So some of my students cut out like pieces of fabric, and it says, happy 50th birthday, z Dnem Narodzenia, like to the Peace Corps. And then they drew these little flags. And then I have this one that says, and the way they spell Peace Corps is adorable, but happy birthday, Peace Corps. So these are from some of my students that I taught, and they would make me little things like that here and there. It's just cute.
So how old were they when they made those? What grade level was it?
Oh, those are probably like ninth graders. I would think ninth or 10th grade, maybe, yeah, probably younger, eighth to ninth graders, maybe.
So turned soldiers now, probably, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. They, all of them are well into the adulthood now. I taught the village school was there. It was all grades. I subbed in 3rd grade a couple of times, which was awful. And I respect teachers so much, but I would never want to do that again, especially for that age. Um, it was like a scene in a movie. There was like one boy standing on a chair, and there were like kids running around, and it's just chaotic. And so I taught English to fifth through 10th grade. There's only 11 grades there. And then sometimes I would fill in for 11th, and they call them forms. So sometimes I would fill in for 11th form or do like, I'd go in and do a lesson on the US or something, because the US section of their textbook was like 3 pages and it was about football and friggin' cheeseburgers. So, so I went in and talked a little bit more about the US. Again, it wasn't British. The textbooks were British English. They were highly focused on. There was actually there was a unit in, I think, the 9th grade textbooks that was called "Britain is Great," and when my mom came to visit, we were starting that. We just happened to be starting that unit, and I read that, and I like looked over at my mom and kind of rolled my eyes, and she was laughing. But uh, you know, but I was there to teach her about the U.S. It was my Peace Corps goal. So as far as my village, so after we finished training, we all went back to Kyiv to be sworn in, and so we were sworn in as like civil servants and did the whole. It's a little bit different, but it's like similar to the military swearing in, or the same, or you swear to protect or defend our constitution and everything. So we're sworn in, and then there was a representative or just a volunteer person that came from wherever we were going to be moving to for the next 2 years, called our counterpart. And so our counterpart was there. And so we were introduced, we found out where we were moving. And I was relieved to find out mine was only 3 hours south of the capital, although I didn't go there very often. And so I met her, and we got on a bus, and it was snowy, and we went down, and then she brought me to my apartment, and then I don't know, I didn't really get to see much because when I first got there, it was like I said, it was snowy, and so I was kind of just in this like little apartment, but they had me over for dinner a lot. Like I ended up becoming really close with them. She's like I call her my Ukrainian mom. I actually get to see her again here soon. I didn't have time the last time I went to see her, so I'm looking forward to that. Her and a lot of people in my village, because they're the whole reason I'm now I've met and worked with and gotten to know so many more people, obviously, but they're the reason why I kind of got, went the full scale and kind of went all in and everything. So if it weren't for those friendships and relationships that I have, with them, I wouldn't probably have gotten as, it's just like still a really strong bond and connection with them. And I love them. So I'm excited to see them.
So I'm going to ask the question everybody's thinking right now. Did you fall in love?
With the food.
What's your favorite food?
I like a lot of Ukrainian food. I was not a fan of the meat jelly, which is like a meat. It's exactly what it is. It's meat jelly. It's a cold, it's textured. I don't know. It's just gross.
Is it comparable to, have you ever had head cheese? Pass.
I know what that is, but I can't picture what the appearance of it. It's gelatin. It's like the fat from meat. Basically, I think it was probably, it's like the gelatin part of meat with like little chunks of meat in it. And I think it's one of those things that was, back when, not just back when, there are still people living like this, but the dish came to be, when you had to use every bit of your food. Like if you killed an animal, you ate you used as much of it as you possibly could. And so if you had this fat and like little scraps of meat, then you're gonna use that and you're gonna eat it. And so I think that's why that became a thing. I like borscht is good, but there's so many, and you can't call borscht is not soup, but there are lots of, excuse me, Ukrainian soups that I really like. One's called kapustnyak, which is kapusta is cabbage, means cabbage, and so kapustnyak, I don't know if that actually has a meaning, but it's basically like cabbage soup, which is wild because I wasn't into cabbage before Ukraine, or pickles for that matter, but now I love both. And so there were a bunch of different soups, and my host mom was an incredible cook too. And Ukrainians are so hospitable. And I during training, for example, I would walk to and from our group lessons, and on the way back to my host, where I was living with my host family, I would pass my Titka Luba, which means like Aunt Luba. She's a relative of my host family, and so she told me to call her Aunt Luba. She also asked me if my teeth were ceramic, which I thought was funny. She wasn't the last person either. And so when I would stop there after my lessons, and she'd be like, "Here, have a snack," and then it'd be like 8 plates of food. And I knew that I was going home after that to have delicious dinner that Natasha, my host mom, made me. So, but they're just, they would give you the shirt off their back, if you needed it. So, and when I first lived there was still, after only 20 years of independence from the USSR, from Russia, there was still a lot of how I've referred to it as like echoes of the Soviet era, and one of those being kind of the more, as we think about it, like from a lot of movies, like kind of that like serious, like in public, kind of like serious acting and quiet and everything in public, people a few words, and so they did that, and they learned that because it used to be, that they would disappear, if they said something wrong or whatever, just like it's happening in Russia right now. If they spoke out against something or whatever, or someone, so they kept to themselves. But even in the time from when I left to move back home in 2012 to when I went back to visit in 2019, I saw a difference in that, and it's gotten, and especially now, and I think it's because they've had to work so cohesively, a lot of them, with regard to the war and the fact that there have been, in certain areas, a lot of like foreigners and stuff. So, and also there was I feel like another thing that helped is there was the Eurovision football cup, I think is what it's called, like in like 2013, like right after I left. And that was there were a lot of people from outside of Ukraine that came to Ukraine. And I felt like that was a kind of a part of a turning point there. All of that, there's so much stuff that's happened in that country. I mean, even just since 2010. So that's a lot for, even without the full scale, it's just, there's been a lot of development, and, just their access, internet access, for example, just, that's, that changes anyone. And they weren't eased into it as much as we were. We kind of, got to ease into that a bit. And then all of a sudden it was like, they didn't have it. And then everybody had smartphones and access to everything. And we all know how horrible the internet is.
Oh, yeah.
But it also helped connect them to outside and, the outside of their country and everything. And again, coming from a former, having been being a former Soviet state and having so much of their information controlled or fed to them, the ability to access whatever you wanted was really big for them as well.
So circling back to big events that you're talking about there, what was it like for you when Euromaidan happened? What was going through your mind when you saw it happening?
So I was working, and my first job when I got back, to kind of, because I had to start working obviously when I got back, but it's not something I had any interest in doing long term. But I got into property management for some time, and I remember I was in the leasing office at these apartments I worked at, and would like try to sneak away like on my lunch or whatever, and then other times I would try to go to this like I would go in the back room and be looking it up and watching videos and stuff of everything going on. And at that point, that felt like there was going to be a full scale war, not like with Russia, but it was just scary. And and it was awful. We're watching videos of civilians being just like mowed down and stuff. But also it was scary because I knew that Viktor Yanukovych, who was the president at the time when I lived there, and until that point, he was corrupt as fuck. He was sorry. Oh, sorry.
No,
He was really. I know.
Listen,
I'm trying not to swear.
Guys, if anybody was tuned in yesterday, you saw me crying in tears, pissed off, screaming on my channel for about, I don't know, a good hour straight, absolutely livid and fed up with the fucking world, having a meltdown. So by all means, fuck.
Well, thank you. I don't want my mom will get mad at me.
Sorry, Mom.
No, I'm trying to do better because I usually swear like a sailor. Can't help it. My dad was one. So what was I saying? Yanukovych. So it was known that he was a Russia's puppet, and I think that was really, that's part of what led into all this, is because that was really, this is just what I'm going to say right now. Like, this is just my observation and this doesn't come from what Ukrainians told me, but like what I think was maybe the case was like a lot of older people that had grown up and lived in the USSR kind of just felt like, well, yeah, we're independent, but this corrupt Russian dude is still in charge. So, nothing's really, kind of, it did change, but I think it was probably like younger people, and it was a lot of younger people that were part of, a lot of the demonstrations and everything, and it usually is with a lot of things like that, like protests and things like that. And I think they were just sick of it and didn't, and they hadn't lived like that forever, and they were seeing where it was going, and then they wanted it. They're like, no, we're independent. We have our own constitution. We are an independent nation. Like, time to call this stuff out. And so Yanukovych naturally fled to Russia. Shocking. And then he had like a palace. I remember that, like, finding out he had like a whole zoo at his house and stuff. It's all the same, it's the same. It's the stuff that Zelensky's being accused of now, which is not true.
Oh, like
even though
the
Zelensky
naval
was
sex tunnels, because I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think he has a sex dungeon as well. That's you can actually, the public is not actually allowed into that part of the mansion.
Well, maybe not you guys.
Fair enough.
So, no, I'm dreaming about Z Daddy now. So I was, okay, so I mentioned that. So I was afraid of, because I knew that I was aware of it. I knew that, like, that Yanukovych was a Russian pawn. And so I knew that there was, a lot of that was being controlled by Russia, by Putin. So that part of it, that influence, and that, that was scary. And I'm sure a lot of you guys remember or have seen, even if you weren't watching at the time, like, there's a split image of Maidan Square, I think, or like Independence Square in Kyiv. It's like got the big tower pole thing with like the angel. I think it's Michael, the archangel, or something at the top, and it's like a split picture where half it's like how it normally is, and the other half is during Maidan, where it was just like black and just, everything had been on fire, or like, and it was just awful. It was horrible to see. I thought that was like going to be after that, and they cleaned it up. I was like, wow, that was the worst thing that I've ever seen in Ukraine. So, and then it was really, it was weird because it was still going on. There was still fighting in the East and everything. Even when I went in 2019, like, there was a war going on, obviously not to the same scale, but and it's crazy because when I think about it, I wasn't really that far away from it, but it's like, I don't know. I think at the time, maybe, I'm not really sure. Like, maybe we talked about it. And there were already some people that had family members that were coming back from it, with permanent disabilities or physical and psychological trauma and everything. So it's just weird but yeah, I guess overall it was just scary. And I remember thinking like, I'm never going to be able to go back there again. And that was in 2019. And I had always planned, when I left, I'm like, I'm coming back here. I love this. I love these people. And this is my village now, so, and I can't tell you how many times I've thought like, I'm not going to ever be able to go back there again. Unfortunately.
Oh God.
And every time I go, it feels like that. So,
yeah, that's
but I did.
Heartbreaking. What was your
Yeah.
trip like? You said it was 2019 when you went back. What was your trip like? How was the environment different from your first trip? Like,
So the biggest one of the little stories that I'll mention that kind of shows the biggest differences. Whereas I was in a nearby town, Cherkasy actually, which is the biggest town near my village, with my Ukrainian mom and her husband. And it was actually at the end of the trip. And I was looking over, because I was really familiar with the part of town we were in, because the bazaar, the marketplace was right next to us. And I would have to go there to get, our village had like a little tiny grocery store. So if I wanted to get like a lot of fresh food and stuff, or good quality meat and stuff, I would go take the bus into town. So we're standing there and I'm like, man, like this is a brand new building in the last year or two. And like, there's another one. And then like all the like a lot of stuff was redone. Our village had like another paved road. So I think we had like two paved roads, or three maybe. And then we had like streetlights on the main street, which was wild. And then the other town on the other direction, in the other direction from my village was Smila, had this like whole street that was redone. And so I had seen a lot of the other things, but I was looking at that building and I was like, oh yeah, I've noticed a lot of new stuff here, new buildings and all that. And I was like, where did all that money come from? And she's like, it's always been here. It's just finally getting used for what it's intended for. So that was like a big kind of moment for me. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, because when you don't have extremely corrupt, Russian leaders running the country, not to say that they had rid all of them, obviously, as we know, they're still working really hard on that, but it was definitely a huge change. And the police were a big difference too. I'd have to look back. I can't remember what year. I think it was 2014, but like there was a lot of police corruption. And so they basically fired them all and had the military act as the police, so they could kind of start over basically. And because it was just like a lot of bribes and stuff. I was fortunate. I never had any like run-ins with the police in Ukraine, but not fortunate. I was behaving mostly. So
mostly.
Our village didn't have cops, I'll put it that way. So that's continued to get better, to the point that it's like, oh man, this sucks, because now you actually get pulled over for speeding and you really have to pay a ticket. So it's just, that's been a huge difference too, is the police force. And I'm sure, not to say like everything's fixed and perfect, I don't know, but just from what I've seen from someone who, my observations from someone that has some experience living there and has seen some of that and heard, some of that, I definitely have noticed big differences as far as those two things go. Those are probably the biggest things that I noticed.
So how long were you there in 2019?
Just a couple weeks.
So that led pretty soon after that, things kind of calmed down, got quiet. When the full-scale invasion happened, what was it like? Were you in contact with your friends there?
Yeah. Yes.
What was it like leading up to that? Were they showing concern? Were you in communication with them leading up to that?
Yep. So I actually looked back at my chats with a few people, and 5 or 6 months before the full scale, we were talking about like something's going to happen, but I can't. This is like paraphrasing what they were saying. Like we feel like something's going to happen, but there's no way that Russia could do this to us. Like there are Russians that live here, and like but then as we got closer and a couple months out, and that's when they started accumulating military equipment along the border, and it was getting we knew, and then I think it was like a month or two before it got to the point where we were like, okay, this is like an any day thing, and when we knew it was real was when they started staging mobile crematoriums with the military equipment, and the purpose of those being so they could burn their own dead so that they didn't have to account for their losses, and then also not have to deal with the logistics of returning them. After a while, those were all gone. Probably, I don't know, maybe it could have been a couple of days because we blew, as you guys know, we blew the heck out of Ukraine blew the heck out of a lot of their stuff during their 3-day takeover of the capital. But then they just stopped. They just started leaving them after some time. So I've actually had to help purchase body bags before for Ukrainians to clean up rotting Russians, because they're just left, and it's in areas where people are living and they don't want to die from disease, and their animals or whatever to die from disease. So we've had to clean a lot of that up. And then in some areas, they just are still, I'm sure they're just, in areas that have been occupied previously, or, Ukrainians can't, in some areas, it's not even possible for Ukrainians to go and like search for, as much as I hate to say it, like mass graves, and like there will be bodies that will never be discovered, and then some that will will be eventually, but there's a lot of missing people, and there's areas where there's nobody. There's little villages like right up next to the front where there's just like little old ladies living there still, and nobody, I doubt they're not like reporting to anybody, like still here kind of thing. So and then when they take this isn't so much anymore because they're not taking towns and villages and everything at the same speed that they were initially, but like there was one town or village that I was in 2023 that when I was there, it had been occupied twice already, with the most recent time about 6 months before I was there. And God, I was just torn to hell. Like they were just riddled with bullet holes and stuff. And there were no civilians living there anymore. And it was a village, but I mean, like it had its own school and stuff. And the school, in like the little kids' classroom, there was a calendar. And I actually didn't notice this until a couple months later when I was looking at the picture. But there's a calendar on the wall, like, little kids like, how's the weather today? And the calendar said February 28th, 2022. So as you guys know, the full scale officially started on the 24th. So this was 4 days in. So I actually looked up like where the Russians would have been at that, when they were advancing, where they would have been at that time. And they would have arrived like the next day, probably, or within 2 days. So there were still people living there up till till then. So there, I mean, it's very likely that I did a presentation for Peace Corps, Return Peace Corps volunteers a year or so ago, and I was showing them pictures and kind of explaining this, and they're like, where are all the people? And I'm like, I don't, like, they either left or they were probably executed when they went in there, because this village had been completely ransacked. Every single drawer and cabinet in the school, in homes, including like kids' rooms and stuff, everything is pulled open and left open. So it's creepy as hell. It's really eerie, I guess, because you walk in every room, all the cabinets and drawers are open, and stuff's just pulled out, and because they're just searching for anything they could steal. And like in the school, there was a laptop box. Like there had been a laptop in a like newly purchased or whatever, just in the box, and the box is empty and thrown on the floor. Went into one of the apartments where everything was just dumped in the mid. Like there's kind of an entryway, and the whole hallway is just dumped. The kitchen was, they pulled out appliances in the kitchen, left, there was like a bread maker or something, and they left that. But in the little girl's room had like her bed was flipped and everything was pulled out. And I mean, and I'm talking like tiny, like she's probably like 7 based on her, like the toys she had in her artwork, like maybe 6 or 7. So I don't know what the hell they were looking for in there. Maybe they thought, I don't know. But and there was a bowl of food and like a bottle of Coke on the sitting on the table. So I mean that could have been from a Russian, but it looked like they went in this it hadn't been like inhabited since the people left. So I think it was probably the residents that lived there. It was probably their last meal in their home. So yeah, so point being that they went in and they just, if they're going through and doing that, there's probably a good chance that they weren't politely knocking on doors and asking any remaining people to leave. So but we don't know, because that area has been that area is so hot, as they call it, like hot. They'll say like an area is hot because it means it's being like hit a lot. So they haven't, they've been able to like clear it for mines and stuff, but they can't like venture out into the woods to start looking for, a grave for that had been, so so there's some of that too. I forget what we got on that topic. That was a downer.
Well,
I mean, it's war. So.
It is a downer, but it's also, that was the thing that triggered me, that got me. I had friends, people that I worked with in the past that were Ukrainian, in and out of my job. And the thing that actually turned me on was during the full scale invasion. I remember specifically there was a jet fighter, Russian fighter, that came on, and it shot an unguided rocket into this apartment complex, and they caught it on film. That rocket hit, boof, and the kids inside the apartment started crying and screaming, and I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? What this is barbaric. Why? I actually said out loud, why are they using unguided munitions, thinking that they were some advanced culture and advanced military. And I'm like, what are they doing shooting unguided rockets? What was that guy thinking? Why are they using these munitions? Unbeknownst to me, the level of barbarism that
right, their goal is just the maximum amount of destruction possible.
Right, so that for me was new. Do you have a memory from the initial invasion that you remember that was the most impactful from the full-scale invasion?
Like something that happened over there, or something for me personally?
Something for you personally that you saw that was the memorable moment of that. What in your mind was the most memorable moment of the full-scale invasion that kind of stuck with you?
I feel like that was a decade ago. For me personally, it was being on a phone call with one of my closest friends, Svieta, and her her husband, who I had met when I was there in 2019. And I was crying to them on the phone because I was afraid for them, and they were comforting me. And it was like so weird. But that goes with the whole, Ukrainians have had to endure and survive and defend themselves for generations and generations. So there's been relatively little panic that I've seen, and they're just quiet about it when they do. It's there, but maybe not so much anymore because they're exhausted a lot of the time. But it was just kind of a weird moment to be like, here I am, like I'm crying and scared for them, and they're reassuring me. And they had just come up from their cellar, from hiding, so they'd have cell service so we could talk. So I was like, get it together to myself. But I'll tell you what. Side note, I have a couple things that I found. This is my phone.
Oh my
from
God.
Ukraine when I lived there. So I didn't have Google Translator. I didn't have anything. I had this to survive on. Now, it's
I think you
still
can sell that online for like a big chunk. You might be able to get some donations on that. Holy
Verizon.
cow. That is a
Yeah,
Nokia.
yeah.
I had the same
So
phone.
I used to play Snake on it. Um, so yeah, that was what, and then I like smartphones were just coming out in the US, like starting to become a common thing. And then when I moved, and they boomed when I was gone. And then when I came back, I went into the cell phone store, like T-Mobile, and I was like, yes, I'd like a phone, but I don't want like any apps on it. And the guy's like, your calculator's an app. Like you can't have no apps on your phone. So I just wanted to keep it simple. Um, what were you asking about?
Oh fuck, I
Oh,
don't remember now.
moments,
Okay, yeah, thank you.
moments. So, so, um, I'm thinking about how I'm going to say this because I want to make sure I don't want to mention any people or
Yeah, no worries.
specifics just for safety. But uh, there was a there was a university in Kherson when they first took Kherson, that had about 150 students and professors stuck at it. In other words, like they couldn't. And if for those of you who maybe you might remember this, but that was when they were Russians were shooting anything that tried to leave, anything, anyone, entire families were mowed down. There's a lot of pictures of some of the most horrific images of suitcases. There's like a little kid's suitcase and there's just blood everywhere, and sheets covering bodies and stuff because they wouldn't let anyone leave. So they were stuck. They couldn't go home because again, it was a university, so the students were from all over the place, and then the staff that were there stayed to help like care for them, and then a couple of older like pensioners that lived near the school or that worked at the school, but not maybe like janitorial stuff, or retired professors that lived nearby. So I was fundraising, and we were through a network of people getting food, purchasing food and having it prepared for them. And then like getting bags, had like a bunch of fresh food that was, they were preparing in like a canteen or something for the students and for the staff. And then they would put together these like bags of food to deliver, pastas and beans and stuff like that to deliver to some of the pensioners and retired professors and so on. So and that was like in occupied Kherson. So that was pretty wild. I actually didn't even think that much about it until I watched a video. I don't even know where it was, but it was a woman, a Ukrainian woman in Kherson who was interviewed and had she basically had been one of the people on the ground, like helping smuggle in supplies to keep people alive and stuff. And so she wasn't one of the people that we had worked with, but it's pretty, I don't know the word for it. It's just unimaginable, I guess. But that was just a weird moment for me. And like that was when, the first couple of months, people were just living underground for weeks at a time, months at a time. So some of the different groups and volunteers that I had known from living there, or like previous Peace Corps Peace Corps volunteers that I had served with had reached out to me and been like, hey, I've got this person here that can't get this medicine, or that can't get this or that. Do you know anyone who could help? And then I ended up, that's kind of where the whole networking started. And then if I could help or have something mailed or whatever delivered, then I would. And fortunately, I had a background in logistics, so that actually helped a lot. But as far as just coordinating, so I was getting pictures back and videos back of these people where I had paid for a couple of grocery bags of food, and here they are like underground, just and I don't think that I ever really started asking for, especially in the beginning. I wasn't like asking for pictures. They just started sending them because I think it's like I think it's just like an honesty thing, like because they want to make sure that the person that's giving doesn't think that there's like some kind of corruption or something like that. So it's just easier for them to just be like, here's us with the picture received or whatever.
Right.
So and I've never really had to push for that much, unless it's something like it's a grant and I have to make sure that I'm, accounting for that or something. But um, a grant, sometimes I've helped facilitate grants, and so yeah, it's just getting these pictures of people, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like they're just, living in a basement like this, or like a tunnel, and just hoping that 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 they don't, the door doesn't get kicked in, and they don't get shot in the head, at that point, because that's these regions where I'm talking about, where, Kharkiv and Kherson and everything. And this is when this is the last thing I'll say on this, and we can move on. But I did only civilian, like I was only helping with civilian aid, just because that's what was needed initially, for about the first year and a half. So there was a lot of food. Like, I'd have to go back. I don't know. I know that at one point I reached a ton, like 1 ton of like fresh produce and canned goods. And like medicines and, just all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of civilian aid, just basic stuff that we take for granted. A lot of diabetes, like insulin and heart medication and stuff like that. That this, it wasn't just panic buying, but there weren't any more deliveries coming into a lot of areas and everything. So
You mean they weren't wiping
so
out
we did
all
a
the
lot of that
toilet
initially.
paper?
So yeah, I guess those moments.
They weren't buying all the toilet paper up.
No.
Couple of questions from the chat I got here.
Their toilet paper is a little bit different.
Is it half ply or?
Yeah.
We'll get into the toilet paper talk later.
It's like like the birthday streamers.
Oh God, really? God, oh my God, no.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Not all of it, but yeah.
Jesus, that's terrible. Okay, here's a shout out from Angie. Paige, thank you for everything you do. Heart, heart, heart. Another shout out. Something Wong says, no questions, but please say hi to Paige for me. Have reshared on the stream on X as well. Questions. First question is
hi, buddy.
From Steve. Can you ask from Steve saying, can you ask Paige what drives her continuously to do what she chooses? Does she need to chill out for a bit of time off for her to regenerate? Do you take breaks?
Now I do. Good question. So for the first probably 2 years, it just felt like everything was just like reactive. It was just constantly like something happened, somebody needs something, like now I have to, do this or whatever, to like raise this money or organize something or whatever. Fortunately, because I have grown so close and worked so much with, and I have a couple of different groups that I have worked with, as far as like distributing supplies and stuff like that, and purchasing and all that stuff. But Natasha, who, if you guys have followed if you do follow my posts, I've mentioned her, and she's been in a few of the pictures before. And she's who I'll be with here soon when I'm back in Ukraine. She and I have worked. We work really well together, and have kind of got a I want to say routine, but like a process down, as far as like what I like, my parts and then her parts, and so the time that it takes for it's just a lot easier. It's become a lot, not easier, but it's allowed, and it's helped her as well, because because of funding primarily, but but that has helped a lot. And then I've also had Ukraine Frontline is an organization that has been incredibly helpful for me. They've the Give Butter link, where I can accept donations. They because that was one of the big things too, is the bookkeeping and managing the accounting side of things. Because as of this last, I don't know, like the last week or two, I'm approaching $270,000 raised, which is a lot of money to track and, on the in and out and everything. And whether it's through me or through other, through, I try to, I try to stay out of that as much as possible, but sometimes it's just easier. And honestly, that's how I started. That's how I even started fundraising. Was I, I had posted something on Facebook about how, like, I had sent my Ukrainian mom like a couple $100 because I was like, I don't know what else to do. Like, here's some money out of pocket, because if you need to go get a hotel somewhere, like go to Poland or whatever. Like, and then people had asked me about reputable organizations to send money to, and at that point I didn't know any that I didn't feel comfortable saying any, because I didn't want to say any big groups, because I know that a lot of times that just goes into pots, and like general aid, and it can go anywhere. So I was like, this. Oh, I think my earbud just died.
What happened?
Can you guys still hear me? Can you still hear me?
A little bit. Pretty good.
Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Hold please. I got 13 one-ear earbuds. Okay, here we go.
All right.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
There we are. So, sorry, where was I? Natasha. Something about working together, accounting, money. There's a lot of stuff to account for. Facilitate stuff, then be involved, or, the fewer hands on money, the better. Obviously. Oh, that's what it was. So when I started fundraising, so I had contacted on February 25th on February 24th, 2022, I contacted a couple TV stations, local TV stations, and I was like, hey, I'm a former Peace Corps volunteer. I served in Ukraine, and I'm in touch with people there. And I was doing everything. Like I said, like I was like, what can I do? And then the next day I had Channel 9 and at my house. And then like the day after that, or maybe the same day, I had another interview. So I started, and it got to the point where I had interviews. They would actually, like early on when a lot of people were really into it, they would contact me. So like, I just kind of knew, like, especially on Fridays, like, be prepared, because at least every other Friday, I'm going to get a call at 9:30 in the morning. They're going to say, hey, we met with our producers. Can we come to your house in 2 hours? So that helped a lot. And the reason why that helped is because people who didn't have a connection to Ukraine, which is a lot of Americans, especially in this area, there's not a huge Ukrainian diaspora here. It was like a human interest story for them. It was like they didn't have a direct connection, but like I became that for them. Like, here's this local woman who has this connection, and she knows people there, and so people that wanted to help, it was like she can get it directly there or whatever. So I have found that sometimes it is easier, and I kind of have, part of it's just kind of reading people sometimes, but like it's easier for me to get people to send money through me, or like to a link. Like, that's why this Give Better link is fantastic, because they help manage all that for me, that I do. And but it's still, people know that, like, it's, and 100% of it is goes to Ukraine. It is used for like, I don't have any overhead. I pay for all my own costs out of pocket. So, God, in the beginning, I was paying for fees too, for transfers and all, for donations, and like that was. And the next thing I know, I was like past like 50 grand. I'm like, this is getting really expensive. So I had to, but then I figured out some different programs to use, so it wasn't as expensive. But I guess to finish answering that question, Steve, I have learned, like, the routine of it, and then like, and being able to get ahead sometimes has been really helpful. I do take breaks. I, like, Twitter is a hellhole, and so I took like a month off from there recently.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. I take time off from there, here and there, and I have like a lot of stuff that I have, like, posts and content, I guess, that I have like saved up, because I just constantly am I'm in the habit of like now it's annoying sometimes because I'll even with like non-Ukraine related stuff, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I can get work, you take a picture of this or do this, get get some engagement going. Um, so I have some stuff. So sometimes I'll post or schedule some posts, and I'm not as active. Unfortunately, you got to be on those sites, and interacting a lot to really keep up the visibility. Because the problem is, if I take a break, take a few days off, and I'm not posting online, then I got to spend that much more time when I do start doing it again, and that is stressful leading up to that. That being said, I also done quite a few, and especially like the first year, every single weekend in 2022 after February, I was doing something, um, going to events, organizing events, helping organize protests, everything. Just constantly doing stuff, and that I did get burnt out as far as that, and I did get better about being realistic, especially when it came to the advocacy stuff, because that does take some concentration and everything, and so I wanted to help, but like it got to the point where I couldn't spend as much time on a lot of that as I wanted to, and so but I'm just realistic, I'm honest with people, and as far as like, hey, I can help with this. I have the capacity, time, and mentally at certain points, and I don't at other times. And so I've just been honest with people, no one has a problem with that because they all know that it's not. I'm not just I'm doing it for good cause for good reason, I guess. And that it's not like I don't care anymore, obviously. So yeah, I got to go through phases just like you do in anything in your life. You get tired at certain times, and especially when we have a lot of, there are time periods where we lose a lot of people. Um, we've had like mass, like really large losses at certain times, and like a lot back to back. And so that's, stuff like that's hard. Just wears on you and everything. But then that stops for a while, and then you kind of get back into, that part's just kind of part of a part of being involved with war, I guess, or getting and the downside too, getting to know so many more people. And when you work really hard to try to keep people alive,
Right.
it sucks when they die.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a personal connection with them, like it's just it's like, damn it. Like the and I won't lie, like there have been a couple of times, especially with the guy that I've in a group that I've been helping, one of the main groups that I've helped throughout, who was killed recently, and I did have a little flicker of like, could I have done something different or allocated money to, like, but I know it's not my fault, obviously, and I've never thought that, but and I think that's natural. But I also have a great therapist.
Yeah, mine was from Moldova, and I think she tried to poison me. Don't ever do doctor on demand. My head was gonna pop. Now my therapy is live streaming. Sometimes I go on rage streams and I just
Yikes.
pour my heart out and start screaming for an hour, and people
There you
seem people seem to care, so it's good.
There you go.
Another question from the chat: does you of Viktor Yanukovych? I didn't. I didn't give you a gallstone with that question,
So
did I?
no, I didn't know, I wasn't as familiar with Yanukovych when I lived there. I do know that while I was there, Yulia Tymoshenko, who is now uh, she is like now the head of like one of the opposing political parties, that would campaign against Zelensky. Um, she was in jail like most of the time, like at least a year while I was there. And no one could tell me why. She was literally just, he put her in jail because he didn't like her. She was opposition, and that's what dictatorships do. So, so yeah, in that sense, being about business and themselves and all that. I mean, like personality wise or anything, I can't. I'm not as, we all are very familiar, at least in the U.S. are very familiar with Trump as far as his like mannerisms and stuff like that, and how he actually speaks. I honestly can't speak that much to either of their leadership because Um, I don't think that either of them really care too much about the citizens of the countries that they're running, so they're leading. So
Checks out. That makes
sorry, don't
sense.
have a great answer.
Well, that's a pretty good answer. Have you came across tip of the spear landmine removal?
Yeah, I've heard of them. I've not personally, but I've a lot of the groups that are over there, like foreign volunteer groups and stuff. And there's really not as many of them left anymore. And even the ones that are there, they don't have as many volunteers as much anymore. But which is understandable because a lot of people, you know, quit their jobs to go over and stuff, but they could, you know, they only had so much money to live on, and you know, some of them have had to come back and sort finances and or go back to work for some time and plan to go back. But yeah, I am I would say somewhat familiar with them, but I don't know them like personally or anything.
So let's switch. I got one more question from the chat. Sorry. You've probably heard this a million times from Steve. What's the best sources to contact for volunteer work? Who would you recommend for volunteer work?
So I was just DMing with someone about this very recently. I don't have a good answer for that. Um, I and the reason why is not because they don't exist, but because while I am familiar with it, like I've heard a lot of like, you know, tip of the spear, like I've heard a lot of these groups, or some of them I've met some of the people or whatever in person or you know online. But as far as actual like work goes, I primarily just work directly with Ukrainians and Ukrainian groups. So I haven't in fact I've only run into one other foreign volunteer when I've been there during a full scale, and it was a Texan, and he lived there already because his wife's Ukrainian, so he wasn't like just there for the full scale or for the war, but yeah, so I didn't have a good answer because I said something about like World Central Kitchen or something. They're not taking. I can't remember what their answer. They looked into it and it wasn't them. But so I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately. I function a little like the way that I do things is a little bit different just because because I'm able to, because I have these groups and I can speak the language and I can navigate around there and everything. Yeah, so sorry again.
No, that works.
I haven't
So
had great.
let's talk a little bit about the units or the soldiers that you're supporting now. What are the units? What brigades? If you could remember off the top of your head, if not, it's fine. But tell us a little bit about the soldiers you're
Yeah,
helping now.
so when Natasha and I first started, so she co-founded the group. She co-founded a Ukrainian charity with a guy that I knew who was like a family member of a Ukrainian woman that I know here and am friends with here. I know that's kind of a long connection thing. Well, he ended up, and the group is called. It's two really long words, and I'm not good at even saying it. Well, the first word is Palyanitia, which a lot of people are
Of
familiar with.
course,
But
yeah.
Palyanitia, and then it's like they're it's like uh Sinelnikovichi or something, which is like of their region. And so it basically translates to like bread loaf of their region.
Got it. I actually knew what you
But
said. That was
yeah.
amazing.
So it was such a long word that I don't think I ever like took the time to actually like read all, because it is, like I said earlier, if you just have to like remember it, but I've never like, sat down and memorized it because I don't have to say it very much or talk about it much. So anyway, so Natasha, when I went over in 2023, said he, the guy that co-founded it with her, he was we had like been planning, and he was going to come meet me at the border, and we were going to do some work and all the stuff on our way and all that, on our way back through the country and in my village and then back to the front. He ended up like a couple weeks before I was leaving to go there. He and his family had applied for some like through a church, some visa program in the U.S. and got it. So he ended up kind of funny because we were like crossing paths. I mean, and he felt a lot of guilt about that, I think, which he didn't need to. It wasn't like he was, they've been trying for years. But it was actually turned out just fine because Natasha and I clicked, and she's one of my closest friends now, and I love her so much, and can't imagine I wouldn't have anywhere near the same impact if it weren't for her. So when we first started working together, and they did the same, where they had been helping civilians and internally displaced Ukrainians, but then a lot of them, had either gone back home or had left the country altogether or had resettled wherever they ended up. So the demand for civilian aid wasn't as high. And so she at the time was helping 6 to 10, maybe not even, like primarily like 6 units, a lot, including like the one from their area, like their territorial defense brigade. And so, and a lot of that she was able to do through trades and through collecting money from Ukrainians. But as you can imagine, with the increase in costs and everything, and after so much time, and Ukraine was not a super wealthy, a lot of especially in the villages or smaller towns, like they weren't super wealthy to begin with, so it's not like they have all this, extra money. So they were giving as much as they could, but it's hard. So then Ms. Moneybags American comes over, and I'm like, I got you back. So it worked out great because then she could. It took some of the logistics side off of me. I wasn't having to figure out all of that, with different groups, and so because she'll help me. She'll purchase stuff and have it mailed, for me for other groups or individuals that I help as well. So because I started helping more with the units that she was already working with, we were able to help more, and naturally, because we're doing so much. Sorry, my earbuds are just. I'll keep talking. Naturally, we were able to help more and more, and then people were hearing about us, and so then this another unit who had heard like, hey, or see these volunteers or whatever, and they're getting a lot of aid from them and all that. So we had more and more reach out and more requests, and it got to the point where it's almost too much sometimes. And unfortunately, we've had to. Sorry, bear with me. I'm trying to switch one more time.
No worries.
Kind of laughing at myself. I was sitting in my dark basement, like on the floor, and just, do what you got to do. Okay. So that's one of the things that I have kind of like taken from Natasha in a way, is having to make that choice. Because, she's the one that's there. A lot of the requests that she gets are from people that are like, that know her and that she's known her whole life, or the husband of her childhood friend, or, whatever. And her next door neighbor's son or daughter. So that I basically, when we receive requests, she communicates those to me, and then I make the decision on, she will, I ask her for input, like try to, prioritize these on the list as much as possible. If there's something that, like has to be done, and like certain things that can't wait, obviously.
Right.
But for the things that can, if this group is asking for $500 of this, and this group is asking for $500 of this, like, she doesn't have to, she can put it on me, basically. If something's taking longer, or if she can't give the full amount, I told her to give $250 here and $250 here. So that kind of alleviates, I think, some of the pressure on her as far as that goes. And we've had to, there have been times where we've had to, especially with civilian medicine and stuff, we still do quite a bit, but like we have, um, we were at $1,000 a month of medicine for civilians and soldiers, but it's around 2,000 now. And now we also have Svetlana, who has, some of you may have seen her story, but like, I'm not going to get into the whole story, but Svetlana is, her husband was killed in war, and she's was dying of cancer, and like her power was off in her apartment, and like they didn't, her little sister was 17, just had a baby, and then Svetlana as a 4-year-old. There was a lot going on, but we have taken care. I mean, she obviously has heat now, and she's doing chemotherapy. But her medications are about $600 a month.
Damn, that's
which is a lot.
crazy.
Yeah, which is a lot. So, and we don't do a lot of that individual stuff, but because of this whole family situation, and it's like it's a little bit. I mean, it's different. You know, there is a difference between, you know, buying a drone, supplying a drone to a group versus supplying tourniquets to a group versus supplying, you know, cancer medication to an individual. Like, it's especially the widow of a soldier. That's not to say that we wouldn't do it without that, but I mean, that is a big part of it too. Like, she's left on her own, and you know, and she lives near the front and everything. So that whole family, we've been able to provide for, you know, get them things that they never had, and everything for their baby, and all that. And I have had a couple of people ask, like, well, why, you know, aren't there social programs that can help with that stuff? And I don't know that much about them, but I know there are, but I imagine that they are way overloaded, because there are a lot of people that have been asking for help for years. So just documentation wise and all that, you know, and when it comes to cancer, and you don't have the time to wait, you know, through a lot of the bureaucratic stuff to you know, you're dying. So
I think that's a really good anecdote that you're putting in also, that a lot of people here don't realize that the Ukrainian people are going through the same struggles we have here in the United States every day, as far as our health and well-being. And then on top of that, they have to deal with the fucking Russians. So a double whammy, right?
Yeah.
They have to worry about their personal problems, and they have to worry about getting a freaking drone dropped on their house and being destroyed. So that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got anything else to add about that?
No, just I mean, that's a huge part of it. And that'll never, I mean, that will continue on. I'm saying it'll never end, but that will continue on for at least, you know, at least a couple of decades after the war, even if the war ended tomorrow, because then you have all these guys and men and women coming back from the front, and you've got all that stuff to deal with, you know.
Right.
Lifelong disabilities. You know, one of my good friends has no hearing in one of his ears anymore. They've had one of the guys who we help support, who is he and Natasha's known him for, I think he's from their town, I think, but he had fought in early on in like 2014 to 2017, I think, or 2016, and then was out, and then joined back up when the full scale started. And at the time, and this was a year and a half ago probably, at the time he said he knows that he had at least 15 concussions. And as we know, that can really mess your brain up. But what do you do? I mean, but you know, and especially guys like him, like he actually, when we were talking about that, his son had just turned 18 and enlisted, and he was proud of that. And he's like, this is our country, and we're going to fight for it, and we'll die for it if we need to. And as much as I hate that, like I'm also grateful for people like that too, because, you know, he's never going to physically live a normal life, you know, just because of that. I also just had a flash of a picture that he sent me, because he also got shot right, like basically through the groin area and then out of his behind, and sent me pictures of that. Those pictures were coming in the chat. I'll be honest, that was a little bit jarring. There's unsolicited D pics, but when there's bullet holes, it's a whole other. He was covering, but it's still, there's only you can still tell what's going on. But anyway, so he, and that's a whole bullet that he had through him, and on top of all the, and all, numerous other injuries and everything. And so the point is that, like, there are the trauma, the physical, the psychological injuries, how the children, I mean, kids weren't in schools. You couldn't, under martial law, kids cannot go to school in person unless the school has a bomb shelter. And the village school where I taught, for example, they were out of school for like a year and a half because of COVID. And then they went back, and then they were out of school again. It would, last year at the time, this was 2 years ago, the kids hadn't been in school in like three or almost 4 years, basically, in person. Now they were doing school less like online, but and I know our internet was better in the village at that point, but not every kid has it. And you're also talking about kids that are living with their grandparents because dad's off fighting or mom's off fighting or both of them or whatever. Like, it was already hard enough in a very, in a poorer village with a lot of farming and a lot of kids, like, that's what they were expecting to do and everything. So the focus on educate, which is common in a lot of, like, even in some places here in the US, but so it's just really like that, that much time, not just for the learning part, but for the socialization of children, on top of the trauma and everything, that'll last a life. That entire generation is affected by that, and will affect the country overall. So yeah, and that's all now and in the future. So it's there's so many like secondary and tertiary effects, the negative effects that all this has on Ukrainians and the world in some cases.
The world, definitely. The impact of this is going to be outrageous. Like, people don't realize what happens after the war ends. The scars are still there. The healing just starts. The amount of damage that this has caused, it's going to change the world forever. And the amount of healthcare, mental health that's needed. I have a friend that was in captivity for 6 months, and he fought in his hometown of Mariupol, and it was leveled to the ground. The whole, he was in Azov. He was in the steel factory while his family's being hunted by Spetsnaz. Him just adjusting to regular society and coming to the United States and leaving his home and being here now that he was traded back. Man, it's a lot for him. You can tell. And I asked him, how's America? He's like, it's okay. Like, yeah, it's probably nothing like home, So there's a lot.
Well, and you're also talking about POWs that are they're held by Russia, which, as we know very well, they're tortured.
Right.
They don't treat them like humans when they're not POWs. So they certainly don't treat them with any respect or humanity when they are. So
speaking of Russians, I have someone in the chat asking how Oksana is doing. I know what they're referring to.
That sloppy bitch.
What's Oksana's last name?
Vodkovich.
Vodkovich.
Vodkovich. Speaking of, this is good timing. So I did bring this. I have this little bottle, and it's good timing because this is my last little bit of Ukrainian vodka that I have from there. You can buy it more now here in the U.S., but not this kind. I've never seen it. Maybe like in Chicago or something, but not here. It's called Kozatska Rada. Here, I'll try to stop moving.
Yeah, okay. I needed to see that. All right, there it is.
And then it says klasichna, which means like classic or like the basic kind. Horilka, which is the word for vodka in Ukrainian. Horilka. And this is the one I believe that is made just outside of my village. This is important, so bear with me here. Oh, it's so dark here because I'm in my dungeon. Just a moment. I guess I'm like preparing in my tornado shelter.
Okay, while you're doing that, I am going to pull.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull Oksana up on the stream and let everybody know how Oksana is doing. Okay. Oksana
Lord.
is making America great again, guys. If you don't know Oksana, Oksana is wonderful woman. She is great. She loves potato. This is Oksana. She loves pickles and vodka, and she is willing to meet you for a donation to her fundraiser. This is Oksana. She is, yes. She is seeking passport. If you need wife, she needs passport.
Old Russian video.
Well,
you
gotta clarify why, because her husband Igor was drafted into the military, and he was in Ukraine at the front line, but he didn't die in battle. He got really drunk and he wandered into a minefield and blew himself up.
Oh, so Oksana's husband is dead, unfortunately. This is a sad story. Let's listen to Oksana real quick.
Than one of us, okay? She can go to the contact or to MySpace or somewhere else. I don't care. But this here is mine, okay? There is not room for more than one Russian prostitute here. So my message to her, and I will speak in English because I have read your messages, your writing, and I see that maybe you don't actually говоришь по-русски. So I want to say, Putin, I see that you want to be with him. I know that Putin does not like women with the behind, like the front line of war. Many men go to there and no one will return, okay? Maybe you are mad about this. That's fine. Get your largest pig and meet me at the Red Square, and I show you who is the toughest Russian woman on this app, okay? And then problem solved. So I just want to say, please go to home, get out. This is my place. I and my potatoes are here, okay? All right, thank you, everyone. I now must go to the yard to make the pee-pee because here in Russia, I'm sure, as many of you know, we don't have the toilet to go pee-pee. So, okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye, and glory hole to Russia. Hello, my friends.
Oh, my God, yeah? Wow.
Of all the videos... that was a reaction to that girl that was like really desperate and like kept showing her, like said she was like a Russian princess or something, and she was like trolling all the like Ukrainian women, Ukrainian fundraisers and stuff like that, and then she like showed her butthole on the internet, like making really good choices. But so Oksana had decided to call her out.
I think at one point she said, "Quit sharing my butthole," I believe.
I don't remember. I just watch it again. I'm not gonna watch it again. Okay, so back to Ms. Vodkovich. So Kozatska does come from the Cherkasska Oblast, which is the center of the country. It's just, I don't think there's one between the Kiev Oblast and Cherkasska Oblast, but it's right. Cherkasy is right on the Dnipro River. So basically, if you just find Kiev and then you go down, look at the center of the country down the river, it's between Kiev and Dnipro, and then they're between those two. So I'm gonna do a little. We'll do a little tiny little toast here. For if you have a water or a beer or a vodka or whatever, or just do whatever, I don't care. But to all of the brave men and women who have continued to fight and will continue to fight, or have fought and lost their lives defending Ukraine and democracy, and their family and the rest of Europe and the rest of us, grateful for them, and don't know can't imagine if we didn't have their strength, what this would look like. So grateful for them. So here's to them.
Cheers.
Cheers. Good morning. Oh, yeah. Ukrainian vodka is really smooth.
Yeah, it's made out of potatoes, right?
It's sweet. Yeah, yes. And it's like sweet compared to American vodka. And I didn't know that because I was drinking a lot when I lived there. Not drinking a lot. I drink like was common. That's common to drink there. Damn it. I tried vodka a lot in Ukraine, and it's much more tolerable. And then when I came back to the U.S., I got back right before Thanksgiving and went to Chicago to spend Thanksgiving with my cousins. And we went to a bar like the night before Thanksgiving, and I ordered a round of vodka shots thinking it'd be like all cool, like, oh, Paige is back from Eastern Europe. And it was awful. It's even like decent vodka. Like I never just shot straight vodka before in the U.S. So learned my lesson there. Don't do that.
Oh no, dude. Oh, okay. So vodka is absolutely atrocious here in the United States. The closest thing I've had to anything that was decent was maybe Tito's, but when it comes to like Ukrainian vodka, Polish vodka, it's a whole different element. It's not even the same alcohol.
It's got a sweetness to it.
Yes.
I don't know. It's not like, it's like when I say that, it's like rum has a, like rum is probably a little sweeter, but it's just not, it has a little bit of the burn, but that's more of like the aftertaste versus like the upfront taste is not just like straight gasoline in your mouth. Sweetness up front.
Angie's hooking me up with the Ukrainian store address for some vodka they sell in the city.
Awesome.
I tend to go to the Ukrainian market when I go to Sacramento and spend a few $100s there, and then they start talking in Ukrainian, and I'm like, "What'd you say?"
Right, you can't, if you say the second that you like greet them in Ukrainian, they're like, I'm gonna assume you know.
Sure.
I had that happen a lot. I had babas like yell at me on buses because I would know just enough, but then they would get mad at me and they'd be like, "What, are you stupid?"
I met a guy the other day.
Yes,
I met a guy the other day at my work, and I saw him. I heard his accent. I didn't know where he's from. I walk up to him. My general greeting when I hear a Slavic accent, I say it in Russian. Откуда ты приехал? And he looked at me. He's like, Sacramento. I'm like, that's not what I meant. Звідки ти? He's like, Ukraine. I'm like, oh, okay. Я збираю кошти на сесію. 14 бригада. And he was like, he was like, I'm shocked. I come in the middle of nowhere, and I'm talking to someone. Where are you from? I'm like, California.
Imagine how they feel when they're in Kansas and I come up to them and they're always like, ah.
It's so funny. I love doing that.
Your language is really good. How have you studied that?
Oh God, numerous ways. Angie in the chat, every time I need help with a couple of questions, I just say, hey, help me. How do I say this? Is this right? And then, of course, there's applications and whatnot. I also have this wonderful book that I read here that is like really high level, super knowledgeable. We're talking next level novel called Korovine Vimut Skakati. Right here. So
all right.
I read Cows Can't Jump. And Cows Can't Jump really helps a lot.
Okay. Good. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I could understand what you were saying, and that's not always the case with the Americans or just foreigners that try to learn Ukrainian. Even some of the volunteers that I was with over there that lived there for a couple of years, it's like nails on a chalkboard sometimes, which I get. Like some people can pick up languages better than others, but it's not even just the words, it's like the accent. If you just try to throw the accent on there a little bit, it's a little easier. And that's honestly why I've been mistaken for Ukrainian a couple of times in Ukraine, and then also here because of the accent, because I don't have to say that much, but clearly because of Oksana, I love doing that. So that came naturally for me. But yeah, I had a couple of things I was going to show you really quick. You were kind of talking about the units. I went off on a whole thing about who we help. I got all sorts. So, okay, so now we have probably 12 to 15. Well, it was a little bit more for a while. Probably a dozen that we help on a regular basis. Primarily 108th Brigade, a couple of different battalions from there. 93rd, I actually just got a request today from the 93rd for $2,400 of medicine, which is a lot.
Chat, can we help? Can we help with that medicine, chat? I'm up throw it a couple more times.
I would appreciate it,
guys.
Because $2,400, as you guys have heard, when we already typically have to buy $1,500 to $2,000 now of medicine for civilians and soldiers, on top of Svetlana's stuff. But even just that aside, like that's a huge amount. So 93rd, 59th, we haven't done as much with them. I don't know. 47th, which some of those guys, they took some pretty bad, they were kind of, and there was some regrouping and reorganization when they switched the core system as well. But
that's a pain in the ass when they do that. I understand the need for it. Like they moved. He's now known as Dodger, the guy that we helped with the EcoFlow. We changed his call sign to Dodger, but yeah, he got moved to Second Rifle out of nowhere. But not out of nowhere. It was out of the transition to New Year's. His whole group got wiped out, Fuck.
Yeah, and some of it's just like restructuring and stuff. Some of it is because of that. And honestly, some of them, I think Natasha and I are just in the habit of, like, when we talk about like our snipers from the 47th, like they're still with the 47th, but there's some restructuring there or something. I don't know, but it's who we're like. I know who she's talking about when we're with some of those like smaller groups. Because we just referred to that group of guys as that. But because then there's like another, the 9th, it's all on this phone that I'm on right now, but the 9th, it's like Rubige. And so there's like, some of them have names that are associated with them now. And I'm like, I got two, keep track of all this. Even the soldiers, like they have real names and call signs, and then all their real names are all Volva and Yura and Jenya. It's already hard enough to Sasha. Let's see.
108th, 93, 59th, 47th, 9th.
Yeah. 35th, the 35th Marines. They are actually gifted me with a certificate of thanks, and then appreciation, and a medal, which I'm going to get when I'm over there, which I'm really excited about because it's a really, really big honor, and I'm really proud of that. And I just want my kids to, I want something to remind my kids that mommy's cool forever.
You know what? That's funny.
Like, I'm wearing that. I'm wearing it.
That's funny you mentioned that. I go to these parent teacher conferences and these, like, cause I'm raising 3 kids on my own. Right. And, or I go to my daughter's IEP, I go in there and they're like, so tell us about Ukraine. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, your kids, that's all they really talk about. They say you fundraise, you got your own YouTube channel. And I'm like, well, yeah, here's what I'm doing currently. Here's what I've done. This is why I do it. And like, they are just, all the teachers are in love with me now because of this. I'm like, God, why isn't everybody like this?
Yeah, I don't get quite the same reaction here in Kansas, but they all know, because my kids, like my younger one, I don't generally share their ages just for perverts, I guess. But my younger one, he brought home like his end of the year book or whatever. And at one point it was like, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? And he's like, I'd visit my mom in Ukraine. And like, I wasn't there. Like, and then like both of them, they write about Ukraine, they color Ukraine stuff all the time. And it's just sweet, because I try to limit how much they're exposed to, of course, when it comes to like the actual like horrors of war. But I try to use it as much as I can to teach them, lessons about empathy and helping people, and history too, just all that. So I totally get that. Okay, so the Marines, 35th Marines.
Yes, 35th. 108, 93, 59, 47, 9, 35, 14.
Here's another one. 76. That's 76. This is one of the patches that was given to me. What does it say? 76th Brigade, 102nd. I don't know if they're still that anymore, but we still have the same people. And actually, we're still helping a lot of those same people. Some of you, a long time ago, I posted a picture of a woman who goes by Romashka, or Chamomile is her call sign, and she was a civilian nurse, and then she volunteered after when the full skill started, and she runs a morgue for soldiers, and I learned some. I'm not going to get into it now because it's just a lot of it's horrific, and it's honestly really difficult to talk about because like she had a lot of pride in her work, and which was great. Obviously, she wanted to return those guys home to their families and with as much dignity as possible. But her son was killed. Her son was in the military, and he called her and said he was injured, and knew that he knew that she'd want to come get him, and knew that he was dying. And so she got in the car and drove 2 hours and got him, and he was dead when she got there. And then she prepared his body and all that. So I basically just told you the whole story, even though I said I wasn't going to.
Oof.
But that might, and then she showed me pictures of all of it, like him being prepared. So we're still helping them. And some of you might remember that story because I've shared some stuff about her. And she's got, so we help a lot of like injured guys because she's around being at the morgue. A lot of the time she's around, they're usually next to or part of the hospitals. So she's around a lot of injured guys a lot as well. So we help with some of that, some of their stuff through her. Then these are not all, some of these are just funny patches. Like this is one that I had somebody bring back over for me to use for fundraising. I'm sure some of you have seen it.
Nice.
Haven't used it for fundraising yet, but I figured there'll be a time where that will come in handy. And then I've got a couple of these shells I'll show you. This is for you guys I haven't seen yet.
Oh my God.
These are my patches.
Okay, yes. The murder horror corpse.
So murder horror is one of the nicknames that has been bestowed upon me by Russians, so I embraced it. And so murder horror corps, and then it says "till death do us part" at the bottom of the little thingy. And so I wanted to come up since it's a common thing for the whole thing with the patches started because when volunteers would make deliveries or help a group, it was a token of appreciation because they don't have a lot to give, so they would give this patch and it'd be like, you help us, like here's this token, and I think it also kind of makes it more like an exchange because they don't, it's a little uncomfortable for them to take things for free, and then a lot of that comes from, and that goes back to when I was a teacher and I would do after school tutoring lessons in Ukraine, and like parents did not like that I wouldn't take money for it. So they would like send bags of apples and a jar of pickles and stuff sometimes, which I tried to be, culturally sensitive. So I would take fruit or vegetables, but because it felt better to them if it was an exchange. So that's kind of my theory on like why the patch thing became popular. But so that's really where that's from. It wasn't just like a bunch of people that decided like, let's auction these off and give everybody. So anyway, I thought it'd just be fun because I wanted to focus a lot on like little cutesy fun things for morale this time on this trip because I've seen how much good it does for them, whether it's me or anybody that's there from the US or from a different country, like helping or whatever. It's just something, and it's different for some of them. Like they're doing, these guys they do their cycles and they go back to their, the house they live at near the front, and then they go to the trench and then they go back, and so it's something just kind of interesting for them. And so anyway, so I wanted to come up with something that I could give to them too, and so for a laugh, but also just kind of I don't know, just a cute, goofy thing. And then figured I could use some for fundraising as well, and did just did a and this ties into this next thing I was going to show you guys. Did just do a fundraiser for one of these. I have some of these painted shells, and I don't have the one that I just did the fundraiser for is upstairs because it's getting staged for mailing. And then it was like first place got the painted shell, and then second place and third place got a patch. So, but these are 30 millimeters. So these are shells taken from the front line, and they're painted by a woman in Dnipro. You can actually see at the bottom her signature. Is that focus when I do that?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That looks
Enough.
like
Okay.
that came out of a BTR, I'd imagine. Yeah.
I don't know what that is. So sure.
Yes.
I don't know the weapons as much. So this one's got like it's hard to tell, but it's got like a brown and yellow and like a lot of gold in there. It's beautiful. And then I've got a couple of these here.
God, that's so
another one.
beautiful.
So yeah. So and she wrote her name on the bottom, and she's in Dnipro, and so she paints these, and you can kind of see inside there. So you can use them like as a, I don't know, vase or something, but and it seems it's a little dark, but at the same time, the significance of it is Ukrainians taking something that's ugly and bad and making it beautiful again. And that, especially with these traditional patterns, is that mentality is part of the reason why they can keep going through this shit. And hopefully this won't continue to happen, but why they've for generations have been able to go through the horrors that they have as a society, but continue moving forward after and rebuilding and everything. So that's to me anyway. I feel like that's the significance of these. Those two were actually brought back. One of my mules, actually another fella, brought those two back for me to use for fundraising. And then this one is just this is a 50 cal round. This was a gift to me from another volunteer when I was over there. I don't know, at some point.
God, it's so fucking beautiful, though.
Isn't it? Yeah, I know. It's so pretty.
That's amazing.
And I know it's not super, but yeah. And this is also from the same woman, which is pretty wild, because when my buddy brought these ones back, and I realized it's the same woman. So it's really cool. Even though like this one was a gift to me, but the other two are going to be for fundraising. But just kind of cool that they're both, from that same area. Couple more quick things, because I know we've been going for a little bit. I wanted to show you guys. So one of the other groups that I have helped is they were previously, it's just a very small group. I generally, with the exception of these guys, I have focused on helping Ukrainian units. I don't do international Legion stuff. Now, not to say like I've met some of those guys and they're cool and everything, I'm not, but they have a lot of support.
Yes. I agree 100%.
There's a lot of support for international groups, and a lot of that I think comes from the fact that they speak English and can be on social media and can make more cool videos and communicate and all that, whereas Ukrainians don't as well, in a lot of cases, and don't have the same social media presence and don't have people back home that can, help them or whatever, boost their fundraisers and all that. So, however, there's a guy that I know personally who, I'm going to say he was in the U.S. military previously in special forces, and he has been over there, and he worked for GUR, not with the Legion, like for them. And then, but has signed with, I'm just going to say this. He is with a special forces group, a Ukrainian special forces group now. But this is a really cool picture that's printout that his dad gave me. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to, it looks kind of creepy with the lighting there, but I don't know if you can see that, but there's some Ukrainian photographer that came and took their pictures.
Wow.
It's like this really badass picture. I wish you could see the other one, because the other one it's his face and he looks so cool, he doesn't like it. But anyway, his dad, there's so many things I want to tell you guys that I can't. Never mind. A family member of his gave it to me.
Well, you know what we can do is we can always do a Paige episode 2 after you come back from your trip to Ukraine.
Yes.
Speaking of your trip to Ukraine, what's the deal with that? What's going on? What do you need? What are we doing?
Yeah. So one thing is, I'm hopefully going to meet up with. I got to see him last year when I was there, and we went out and had lunch and stuff. So that was really nice, and I hope I get to see him again. Because as you guys, I'm sure, know or can guess, every time you say goodbye to somebody over there, and it can happen anywhere in the world, but it's more likely that you'll never talk to them or see them again. So, I am looking forward to hopefully meeting up with him and to bring him some some comforts from home, but also just to see him and hang out because he's my friend. So um so I posted an Amazon wish list that I did this previously. God, last year I did, and I had like $4,000 of supplies sent to my house, which was fantastic. But it was like so many boxes, and I had to like go unload on my patio while like the kids are playing, and I'm like opening all these boxes of tourniquets and stuff. So I'm not keeping it up quite as long because I do have quite a bit to bring over that I'm medical stuff that I'm bringing over for other people and some that I've kind of accumulated up until now. But I do have that up. It is on Twitter or on X, definitely on X and Blue Sky. But it's a wish list, and it has stuff like this, like Israeli bandages. And like it's got some of these, not a whole lot of these, but these little like IFAC kits and stuff. My son asked why the Swedish flag was on there.
Those are really compact. That's a nice one.
Yep. Yeah, and there's different levels, and so I try to put stuff on there that's different because I know financially, like just like any registry, if you're having a baby or wedding or whatever, like people have different budgets. So there's all sorts of stuff on there. But primarily, like I said, I do have quite a bit already. Tourniquets are pretty expensive on there, the cat tourniquets, but like they're also really necessary too. So I would say if you do go there and have an opportunity that I haven't seen too many tourniquets ordered yet. Although I did just have somebody send me a message saying that they bought, it was like $350 or nearly $400 worth of stuff, which
Holy
is fantastic.
So I'm looking for this wish list. Is it pinned? I'm having a hard time finding it on your. Oh, there it is, right there. I found it.
Yeah, there's two pictures of soldiers. The first one is some guys walking, and then the second one, some guys with some nets, camo nets that we bought for him.
Okay, guys, I'm spamming in the chat right now. This is the Amazon wish list. How much time? Well, I'm not even gonna go there. You guys, just hit it up.
I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it up for probably 5 more days.
All right, we got 5 days to help out with this. So
yeah, but that being said, if that stuff does help, and especially because I know some people have like Amazon or like gift cards. You can use different, Visa gift card or Amazon gift card or whatever, and use that for those supplies. I do have a pool of like I have been fundraising and have like kind of a base for when I head over, but also, Natasha and I will burn through thousands of dollars like in the first 2 days. So
right.
If you're able to as well, or instead, rather, or both, but donating through the Give Butter link, because that'll help. I have this stuff that I'll bring over, but then there's a lot of stuff that, because I'm still we're still going. Just today I had to transfer about $1,700 for more masking nets, medicine, a couple, finishing ambulance repairs, and some more toward another car repair, another vehicle repair. So it doesn't stop, even though I'm like I have so much to focus on, before I head over. Like the requests and the needs and everything don't stop. I can't just like put a hold until I get there. So I'm trying to not hold on to money so that we're keeping people from getting the aid that they need now, but at the same time making sure that we can be effective when I get there. So it's not like showing up and it's like, well, why are you here, kind of thing. So, and that's where a lot of the management comes in, and you guys don't have to worry about that. That's what Natasha and I are here for. But yeah. So, and then if you have other social media accounts, I know that Facebook is also a hellhole, and everybody's grandma is on there, and grandpa and their uncles, and they're mad.
It's the fucking worst. It is the worst.
But stories show up better on Instagram and Facebook, on Threads. Basically, what I'm asking is anywhere you guys can share any of this stuff, whether it's my post or if you create your own, or send it to people that care or have donated in the past, just to give them a heads up. Literally every dollar helps, and our money goes a lot farther over there than it does here. So I would appreciate any bit of help there, because obviously I'll fundraise, and I'll keep updates, and I'll probably do a couple of Twitter spaces while I'm there. But the less I have to, well, obviously the more money, the better is the point. But
Well,
having a good start when we get there is a good, not having to wait for money to come in other words, so we can just keep it going and just keep the ball rolling once we get there.
Well,
So
I feel like you can count me in 100%. You were doing things behind the scenes for the 14th Mechanized Brigade, which is our friend in the chat, Angie's relatives brigade. While I was doing the Pasanki fundraiser that we smoked out of the water. Absolutely smoked. Looks like you already got someone who did some tourniquets on your Amazon wish list and some donations today, so it's working.
Awesome. Thank you.
So we're going to keep doing that. I am going to completely push your fundraiser the entire time you were in Ukraine, 100%, because I absolutely, you are like one of the best persons I've ever met in my life. You absolutely...
Stop it.
No. I know it might sound like you're at your own funeral, but God damn it, you are. And when you helped me when I was like absolutely at my wit's end, I didn't know what to do. The last place I thought I would get help from was X. And I posted on X, somebody fucking help me. The guy that sent me this video is already dead. And you're like, I can help you. I'm like, okay, let's talk. That's how we, that was literally how we met. So, no,
yeah, I honestly, because that's one thing that like I've had people, not so much anymore, but like I've had people like reach out and ask me about fundraising, and I'm happy to help, but like a lot of times sometimes it's like they kind of want me to facilitate it for them kind of thing, but it's and I like we were talking about earlier with Steve's question, like I can only do so much. And so, but that one I know, because I know I remembered I knew your fella and everything. And that one, I could just tell that you were really upset, I guess, or just down because of the loss of the guy in the video. And I was like, okay, this is something that like, I can jump in here and at least, help get it started, or help along the way. And so yeah, and then we ended up doing even more for them, so it's been a good little connection there.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put more on you either, guys. If you have
no, I didn't mean like that. No, yeah. I didn't mean like that. Like I told you I would do it, so yeah. It just yeah, I don't know. And I get it. And then, of course, once I get in touch with the actual Ukrainians and everything, I'm like, all right, I'll do whatever you need. So that's, which, that's what I'm here for. I've chosen to be here for that. But yeah, I don't know if I have the opportunity to do something, and this goes with just all this. I think that was part of Steve's question that I didn't answer, is like, what keeps you doing all of this? One, there were a lot of Ukrainians that I love and care about, and now there are even more. And the fact that I can,
yes, because
I am in the position where I can, just as far as my life goes, I'm in, a situation where I can do it. I have the language skills. I had the networks to, the background and everything to do it. And so I do. So that's really what it comes down to for me, I guess. Because I would always rather, as hard as it's been over the last couple of years, because I will be honest, I've made personal sacrifices, and and it's tough being exposed, just not just with time and everything, but like it's tough being exposed to this stuff and worrying and all that stuff. But I would still do it 10 times over, knowing that, versus like not doing anything at all. Like at the end of the day, or when I'm old and wrinkly and looking back, like I'm not going to think about the stress of it or the hard part about it. It's like, I'll look at it I feel like as in like, wow, that's insane that I did all of that
Mm.
and had those opportunities and the people. I've met some really, really incredible people, like some that I can't I can't really talk about. But no, but I really have like met some amazing people and just I've learned so much and everything. So I'm grateful for that in that sense. And again, the lessons that I'm able to teach my kids as well as other adults. And then I have had some people reach out to me that, I've over the last couple of years that have been like, I have teenagers and like they know about you and they ask and everything. So that's also really important for me too, especially in a time where it seems like we're at like peak selfishness in our country right now.
Yeah.
I think the message of like of being empathetic and caring, a human life is a human life, especially when it comes to children and everything. It doesn't matter who it is. If you're in the position to help somebody, choose who you help whoever you want. But in my case, I don't have connections like I do, or don't have the language skills or whatever in other countries, but Ukraine is where I ended up. And so that's why I'm here.
Well, shoot, I think we learned a lot about you today, and like I said, I'm all in. I'm all in for your entire duration of your existence. So whenever you need me, you let me know. Like,
Well,
you are literally one of my favorite people on this earth, and
Thank you.
I have no problem sharing that with the world. You will always be one of my
I
favorite
appreciate that.
people. So I will support
I
you.
appreciate
My community will support you. We are definitely expecting more pictures though. I want to hear about your trip when you're there. So let's keep in contact. I know you will. So that's not
Yeah,
an
for sure.
issue.
I'll be a little delayed with some of that. And like, obviously I've had a couple of people ask like when I'm going. And so this is just for anybody to know, like, I'm not sharing when or details or anything like that. And most of the time, excuse me, like if I'm showing any images, it's going to be it'll be well, like there's like last year at some point there was the 47th had a truck that needed to be repaired, and so like I was at the shop and they were explaining to me what needed repaired, so I took like some pictures and I was like, hey guys, we need I need like $2,000 to fix this truck, and we'll do some video shout outs to whoever donates X amount. And so then like I did that later. Like I was like out at the like front at like the house where the guys live, and like sitting in the back of a van like, hey, thanks for your donations. But so some of that stuff, but I'm not sharing when I do that stuff. I'm not sharing where I am or anything. But so some of it is intentionally delayed or in different orders, or there's just certain information that I'm not going to share at all, or will be delayed. So if there's anything that I can't answer while I'm there, then I'll answer.
I think we're all in understanding of that. That's completely understandable. It's not a worry. I do notice Angie Pod in the chat is going to start doing a charity event and probably looking your direction for the funds to be donated to. So keep that in mind. We're making
awesome.
We're making progress on this. So
yeah, no, that's really great. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about your trip. I know all of us are. I know a lot of the people in the chat probably want to know where they can get a murder horror patch. Can you explain a little more about that?
I was laughing about that.
I want one so bad. You don't even know. That thing is beautiful.
I told you're getting one. Murder. So it's the Murder Horror Corps, and then I'm the commander of the War Horror Division. War Horror is another nickname I was gifted. I'm just laughing because I'll be deploying with the War Horror Division. So I did do a limited number of these initially, because that's the first time I've ever ordered patches, and I got them primarily to give to guys over there, guys and girls over there, like I said, soldiers and everything. I'll do another. I don't know if I'll do it exactly the same, but I also have a t-shirt design I'm going to do some prints of, and some other little, so not just the patches, but like other t-shirts and stickers and other little things. And I kind of like keeping it limited for some of this stuff because it makes it a little bit more unique, or like not special, but just not, I don't know. Yeah. So, but I was thinking that some of them I'm going to bring with me a handful of them. I'm going to bring most of them with me. and give them to soldiers. But then a handful of them I'm going to bring with and like have the guys wear them for a picture and then bring them back. So that way it's like even cooler because it's like, you know, it's not just the patch. It's like it's been on a soldier in Ukraine, you know, like you can see it and stuff. Because it's, you know, they take up like no space and they're not heavy or anything. So I thought that might be kind of fun. So I'll do more of those. I'll do more of that when I come back. After I come back, and I'm sure I'll have lots of other types of interesting stuff to give you guys, basically.
Well, awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hearing back when you get back from the fundraiser. Guys, if you can, in the chat, please help. It's pinned in the chat, givebutter.com. If you have any issues with that giving, get a hold of me on Discord. I will link you the PayPal, and we will help Paige in her endeavors as she has helped me. You got anything else you want to say before we go?
No, just thank you for this is my first YouTube stream. So cool. Thank you very much for all of your support, and not just of me, but and your kind words, but of Ukraine, obviously. There are fewer and fewer people that are not Ukrainian or aren't married to Ukrainian, for example, that, not knocking that, just saying that that like people that didn't have like a major connection to, became more involved with helping because of the war, and so I'm really grateful for everyone that that is still here and just listening, and because a lot of this, and for me, isn't just kind of ties back to the third goal of the Peace Corps, teaching Americans about your host country. In this case, I still like to teach about cultural stuff or Ukrainian history and all that kind of thing, and the language and all that, but also teaching about, talking about what's happening and keeping that, what's happening to Ukrainians, and keeping that at the forefront of as many minds as possible is, I consider that part of the third goal as well. So thank you guys for allowing me to do that and listening, and because obviously sounds like a Grammy speech or something. Like, I couldn't do this without you, but I couldn't, because I don't have a spare $200 and something thousand to give them. So thank you all very much for all of your support. And please, if you ever need a break, take it. Doesn't matter how much you're doing. You could just be witnessing this stuff, even just pictures and videos. Take a break. I'll be here. We'll be here when you come back. And, we've got a long road ahead of us. So hang in there and keep supporting the Ukrainian armed forces and the civilians of Ukraine.
Well, I couldn't have said it
I'm
better.
supposed to say Slava Ukraini.
Herom Slava.
Everybody finishes with that.
All right. Well, we'll finish with that, Paige. Thank you for coming on today. And like I said, we will support you the rest of this journey. I look forward to hearing you when you get back, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. All right. Well, that was it, guys. That was it. That was Paige. Like I said, one of the best people I've ever met in my life. I mean, she is just a wonderful, wonderful human being with a big heart and the ability to get the job done. There is no doubt in my mind, if we donate to her fundraiser, it's going to go to help people on the front line. She is solid. She is a solid person, like the best. So I'm going to support her. Like I said, like she saw in the video, I'm going to play the video of the first fundraiser that I got. And man, I wish I would have reached out earlier, but I don't know. It is what it is at this point. But she was kind enough to help the 14th Mechanized Brigade when this happened. Can I even find it? Am I that? Where is it? I'm just going to show you guys. I'm going to play it. Here it is. Here? Right here. Nope. Oh, well, that's not it. That's a little dog humping a rubber chicken. Yeah, okay, I'm a meme maker. I make mistakes. It's okay. It's okay. It happens, yeah?
And now
Yeah, right here.
we are soldiers of 14 separate mechanized brigade, asking you to help us to buy Mavic drones, FPVI drones, and generators, pickups for evacuation, or anything that you can help us with from this list. So we are very thankful in forward, and thanks to all our American friends who are supporting us and who help us. Thank you. Goodbye.
So that right there, the man speaking in that video was killed in action before I could get the first fundraiser going. And every time I see this, it's like watching a ghost. And it really impacted me hard. It got to the point I asked everybody, guys. The only one that really came to bat for me on this and was like, hey, we need to do something with this, was Andrew Mercado from Mercado Media. And then Paige. But I had to, yeah, Angie, you're the one that sent me this video. Yeah, Angie's the one that directed this to the gentleman that died. And I tried my hardest to get this fundraiser going, and I couldn't get help. Mercado helped boost me. He's like, dude, I don't know where to go through other than NAFO. I'll post him on stream. He did everything he could to help me. And then after he passed away, I was like, fuck, what do I do? No one's picking up this fundraiser. So I posted on X, and Paige was like, I got you. Don't worry about it. And we started talking from there, and then that's how my whole fundraising thing started. And unfortunately, he passed away before we get him the help, and I will never forget that. I will never forget that. That totally impacted me in a way I never knew it would. God damn it, and it sucks, man. You know, it hurts. But eventually we were able to get the fundraiser going and completed. It took 6 months. 6 months for me to get it assigned. It took 6 days to complete. 6 fucking days. 6 months to figure out how to do this. Right? 6 days to wrap it up. So we're going to continue to help. We're going to continue to help. That's all we can really do. I am not playing that video because I don't know if his face is covered. But yeah, that was the 14th Mechanized Brigade. Angie still has a family member fighting over there, who I'm not going to name at this time because he doesn't have a call sign yet. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to help Paige. Paige is solid. Paige is the best. And that's what we're doing, guys. And that's all I got for you today. I felt like that was a really good interview. We got to know her a little better. And yeah, her first YouTube adventure. That's crazy, right? Because we're always on YouTube. I'm like, man, she's out there. She is out there dealing with some shit too. I have been on some of these freaking podcasts that she's on, hearing these other people. She gets mad too, like me. But I'm not raging today, guys. Thank you if anybody engaged in my raging freak out stream, thank you. That I feel so much better after that, you don't even know. But I'm not one to bottle shit up. I gotta let it out, right? Bottling it up, bad, dangerous, unhealthy. So that stream was not. It's not the last. It's gonna happen again, right? We're all gonna let it out. And that's what you get from me. I'm not going to bottle anything. I'm not going to hide anything from you. I might not tell you details on shit for security reasons. But if I got a fucking problem, you guys are going to be there for me, and I'm going to be there for you. All right? We're going to do this together. Right now, we got to help Paige. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much. This is a great stream. I'm super stoked about this one. Highly anticipated for me. Like I said, I love her to death. We'll get into deets later about the patch. And we'll stick to the fundraising. My Discord channel is almost complete. I'm going to follow up with that this week. I will have my own Discord. Once I have my own Discord, I will have items to raffle off. Little handmade trinkets. I have a guy who makes Banksy art. He made me a nice Banksy art I'm going to raffle off. And also I've got a plaque from the 151st. So we're going to do some stuff like that. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time. I appreciate the hell of you guys. I'll see you later. Here's a little outro for you, okay?
Motherfucker, Nafo, fella, drama.
You called Green Moscow Marjorie. The nickname seems to have really taken off.
Moga, Nafo, fella, drama. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Moga, Nafo, fella, drama. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. I put that on my party, I put that on my family. 14th District, Georgia Swamp, address me as your MTG. Yeah, you can kiss my ass, but you can never touch my town. I deport all the immigrants so they don't turn my babies brown. MAGA is my party, I'm like a horse head Barbie. Divorce one, he's not hung, but the gym guy is naughty. Hardy, magic girl in the Senate, radical. See me at your college campus, baggie full of Adderalls. Call me if you need a lie, call me if you need no truth. See them other Republicans, they don't ever leave the booth. I'm a conspiracy loser, I got no solid takes, but Jewish space lasers be burning up your Golden Gate Bridge. My IQ is less than your fridge and the freezer, and we stunning like Mugamma, the Golden Gate Bridge. My IQ is less than your fridge and the freezer. Moga, Nafo, fella, drama. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Moga, Nafo, fella, drama. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Moga, Nafo, fella, drama. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Moga, Nafo, fella, drama. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Call myself a winner, yeah. And if I met Jesus, I would poison him at dinner. I'm the editor, on Nafo, fella, drama. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. I'm looking like Madonna, but I'm flossing like Ivana Trump. You know I keep that twerk in my trunk. Got my hand on daddy trunk, so I can feel his lump. I'm yelling Moga, nasty, till my throat is raspy. Old, rich and trashy, I be where the cash be. You can't find that. I think you need a Google map. My Putin handler will poison all your kitty cats. Now Google that, dummies follow me on Twitter. I claim to read the Bible, but I be lying out my shitter. You're a lame ass sinner, I call myself a winner. And if I met Jesus, I would poison him at dinner. I'm the editor, director, plus I'm my own boss. Shitting all Ukraine with no shame, just to see the loss. Which means the dog getting over me. Russian propaganda be pumping out my ovaries. And we starting like Moga, Nafo, fella, drama. And basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Looking like Madonna, but I'm flossing like Ivana Trump. You know I keep that twerk in my trunk. Got my hand on daddy Trump, so I can feel his lump.
Talk to her, got you spitting on my bits. And Nafo fellas always reppin' with bomb hits. We wipe you out like toilet paper does the shits. Serve you up like cheesy eggs, bacon and some grits. We are in your walls and we better than your cause. My Shiba Inu hungry, gonna bite you with his jaws. Designer keyboard ready for our pause. We posting memes, original with no flaws. We phone controls online for the cause. We never slow down, sleep or take a pause. We rollin' deep in the fetty, that's our cause. We fundraising money, phone controls and breaking the laws. And we crazy smooth brain, don't ignite us. Bump until all my phalanges get rheumatoid arthritis. And that's why nobody ever wanna fight us. Nafo fellas never stop like a trainer virus. And we barking, biting, bonking, biting, wagging tails when we hit the night. Sparking, lighting, igniting like a bomb. No fuse though. Nafo fellas be better than all your bots know. And we got no leader, I am the boss. 10,000 deep when we creep, ain't no time to floss like an owl. We don't sleep, we about that box. Telegram to the X, we about the cause. And our moves are so fluid like we made of water. Blowing warships up, you ran out of solder. You might think you're hot, but my game is harder. Take a chick to the tunnel like Octua got her. Till the end we will rep, that's all we gotta do. Tearing up the set with Nafo on its crew. We bustin' rhymes in the beats like all the fellas do. Better check yourself before my doggies do. spitting on my bits. The NAFO fellas always reppin' with bomb hits. We wipe you out like toilet paper does the shits. Serve you up like cheesy eggs, bacon, and some grits. We are in your walls and we better than your